Good evening. I'd like to call this October 9th meeting of the Northfield Township Board to order. Please stand for the invocation. Do we have a volunteer for that? Volunteer for the invocation? Oh, thank you.
With the deepest of gratitude, may we humbly petition the guiding hand of divine providence to this assembly as also to our daily lives. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll, Clerk Manley.
Bellinger.
Here.
Dockett.
Here.
Chick. Here. Otto is late with notice. Zelenak.
Present.
Manley here. Chockley.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. I'd like to I'd like to make a change to the agenda. We're going to remove number 3 from the agenda.
Support.
Okay. So thank you. So I'd like to have a motion to adopt the balance of the agenda as amended with the removal of number 3.
So moved.
Motion by Chick and support by
Support.
Manley.
Question?
Yes.
Are we at this point also pulling items out of the consent agenda perhaps, or is that another separate motion?
No, that's coming at the end. That'll be at the end. We'll deal with those at the end. So there's really no need to pull them out at this time. So we're not going to deal with them until the end of the meeting. Okay.
I have a question. The reason we're removing number 3? Okay, thank you.
She changed her mind, yeah. Okay. So we have a motion to adopt the balance of the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. That passes. 7-0. Thank you for joining us, Miss Otto, as quickly as you could make it. All right. Now we have an opportunity for call to the public. If anyone would like to address us tonight, please come up to the microphone, turn it on, state your name and your address, and then you have 3 minutes to share with us whatever you would like to. Good evening.
Mary Devlin, 9211 Brookside Drive. With all due respect, before I say anything, all due respect to Lockwood, okay? Regarding Lockwood's latest update proposal, if they purchase approximately 5.2 acres for Phase 1 for $575,000, then why does the township have to pay for the improvements mentioned, and why is Lockwood dictating how that money is spent? Secondly and lastly, I would also like to know what is included in the rent of the apartments and the sizes, etc. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to meet you. My name is Leslie Holliday. I live in Whitmore Lake. I'm a teacher. I'm the mother of 3 adult children.
Speak up, Miss Holliday.
Louder?
Yes.
Okay. I have a big voice, so I start with some restraint. I'm a mother of 3 adult children, and I'm a teacher. I live in Whitmore Lake, and I love living by the lake. It is just beautiful. And when I look at that beautiful piece of land that's looking over the lake, and I think to myself, if I were a developer and I could make any kind of building there that I like, that would meet my needs and be something different and creative, what came to my mind is a beautiful indoor water park that would be an atrium of some kind. And especially since I have a tendency to want to do things naturally and ecologically, and since I'm so unhappy with many water parks that manage water chemically, it would be a very interesting experiment to see if a very small glass atrium water park could be built that would manage water in a new ecological way using ozonation and filtration and mineralization in the dead of winter when it's freezing cold and everything is iced over. To be in a place that is warm, that has bright lights, that can be refreshing would really be something different. And as a project, it could also possibly involve the universities, the schools of ecology, the schools of environmental engineering. My daughter is an environmental engineer, and I know that a project like this, if she were a student at a university, would be incredibly interesting to her. Nothing like this has ever been done before. It's a completely new and unique idea. I think it could be done for not too much money, possibly with educational funding. And I think in tandem with this, to develop the land in a way that utilizes a lot of the agricultural and natural agricultural and beekeeping resources in the area, creating a farmer's market, a place where people could come and stay, have a bed and breakfast, have a small shop where local organic farmers could sell their produce, because what would come in behind that would be all of the people who have wonderful creative products in clothing, in candles, in medicinal ideas, would come in behind and create some business. In conjunction with that as well, I really believe that the Kiwanis rummage sale shop should be saved. And the reason that I say that is that as a teacher, I've seen a lot of parents go down to that store and buy school clothing for their children. They've come down from Whitmore Lake, they've gone in there, they've bought things, a lot of clothing that's been very useful, and also items for their home. And over the summer, I've seen antique dealers come in there and get very excited. Oh, look what I found. I would never find anything like this anywhere else.
Okay.
And where Kiwanis has already invested in the neighborhood and been of service for a long time, I think they should be given the opportunity to develop the upstairs, which would be a place where, my time is up, I'm sure, where people
It is,
could
yeah.
gather and have community affairs. So this is a very different idea, something new, but
Thank you.
just please think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come up at this time? Okay.
Good evening. Udo
Good
Hof,
evening.
6431 Whitmore Lake Road. I was busy, couldn't be always here, but the last meeting minutes triggered that I wrote a letter to the board, and I don't know how many times, maybe I have to look into the archives of the meetings, I have asked the board to come up with a project for when you run something out here. And when I read this quote minute here about the township manager saying that it will be good for the community and the township would be like to compensate it for $400,000 it has invested in the site. Mr. Manager, do you know what this is? This is the developer. This is hardcore business, okay? And if you want to give away our money, then let us know prior to that. So I think what I requested in writing is that please come up with the more transparency of a project management plan for planning and for the execution of a project.
That's your letter.
Yes. And it's very, very simple. Every manager in industry has to maintain a project management timeline. And this is what we in the township, we citizens can request, that we know how and what and when the money flows down. And I think, Mrs. Selenok, you are also a long time in corporations that this is standard business, correct? Project management. So then, why don't we have a workshop and lay it out how it should be? There are many others in our township, they know how to do that. So it is not to blame, but it's this kind of constructive criticism that we need to know where our money is going to. And not just, we need to get our money back. So mainly also addressed to the township manager to come up with a live project development instrument, the money sources. Where is the application for grant writing, federal grants, for the sewer system, for example? It's all available. We submitted all this when we were fighting for our livelihood and did not succeed, thanks to the attorney, and almost lost our farm here. That can happen to any other people. I have friends in this town, had friends, they left their property behind because there was no proper cooperation from the township to help. So things look really dim when it comes to running a business here. Please apply business acumen with project management for planning and execution.
Thank you, Mr. Huff.
Hi, David Gordon, 5558 Helner Road. I also sent a letter, an email 2 weeks ago to the supervisor with a couple of questions about the wastewater treatment plant, and I never got any response at all.
I wrote a draft. I didn't send it yet, but I have it. Go ahead, Mr. Gordon.
Firstly, let me say again that I don't really know whether the Lockwood Senior Citizen Facility will revitalize downtown or help it, but neither does the board. It's a guess. What I do know is that a supermajority of more than 60% of the residents, when asked, said they wanted simply a beachfront park, plain and simple. Now we had a small group of people after that morphed this simple plan into the largest and most complex development project ever proposed for this community. The two things I'd like to say about that is that the board has failed to inform the residents about this drastic change, and I don't know why. The mixed-use development will also trigger an $8.8 million sewer expansion that will increase sewer residents' bills 42%. I don't believe they've been informed of that either, but that is a consequence of this plan. I think you need to be more than simply transparent. You need to reach out to the residents with a postcard or a survey or both and ask them what they would like. Are they interested in being hit with an $8.8 million sewer bill? Or maybe much, much less, to simply have a beachfront park? I don't know why you're refusing to ask them. I think it's just disrespectful not to ask. You can't expect the community to know what's going on based on this meeting or what's on the website. That is not a sufficient outreach, certainly on a project this grand. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am.
I have one more thing to say. When I heard the price tag on the land, I almost fainted. The
Make
land
it-
is worth a whole lot more than that. Don't let it go for that price, please.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. We do take your comments seriously and attempt to do our due diligence here, so we'll be moving forward just to hear the presentation. Now we have a board member response to call to the public. Do we have anyone who would like to say anything? Mr. Dockett.
I don't have anything to say to the people that gave, but I would like to mention that I got a copy of the proposal to tear down 75 Barker for $50,000. And I don't know, did everybody get it? Did you send it only to me, or did
No, I believe I sent it to everybody.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm looking at this, and it says that it was $50,000, but it says minus concrete. That means no footings, no slabs, no concrete block above the ground.
Mr. Dockett, could you speak right into your microphone?
Yeah.
We're not hearing you.
Okay. It means they're not going to take out the footings. They're not going to take up the slab. They're not going to take any concrete. That's what it says here. No concrete. There's no silt fence. The township has to pay for all the utilities to get them disconnected. And many of them, they have no heavy equipment according to this. I mean, this is a joke. It's another $50,000. It'd be $100,000 if that was tore down. I know that we haven't voted on tearing it down, but for somebody to say that $50,000 is a bid on this, and when I read it, nothing is. There's hardly anything here. That, maybe the back part of the building is wood. Maybe they'll take that away. The rest of it won't. So, I just thought. Am I the only guy that read this?
Thank you, Mr. Dockett.
I have one a little bit more.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me see, what else? I'll let you go now.
Okay, Ms. Bellinger, Mr. Dockett is giving his time to you.
No, I'm just saying I'll look.
Okay.
My other thing I wanted to know, we haven't heard anything about green. I want to know if, I thought we were supposed to get an update every month or so. I haven't heard anything about green for months. Does anybody else on the board care about that or interested in it? Or how are we going to find out something?
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Bellinger.
Okay, I want to thank the members of the public for addressing the board with their concerns. Is this also correspondence at this point?
No, we're at board member response to call the public. Please try to confine
I want to
it to that.
thank is it Leslie for bringing out some ideas for the new property, and Udo's concerns with transparency and organizing a timeline, business timeline. That sounds sensical to me. And David does bring up some good points about the park. And I think primarily it should remain a park. That's just my opinion, though. And I have correspondence when we come to correspondence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else down here want to speak to any of the comments of the public? Okay, Ms. Zelnok, go ahead.
I'd just like to thank the people for coming out, and if we could get more to come out and give us some input on this very large decision that the township is making, that would be really helpful. So, but thanks for those who came and gave their input tonight.
Okay, Ms. Otto.
I just wanted to comment about the township hasn't done enough to announce it to the public. We have had several visionary sessions that the public was invited to. We also, there is also a Facebook page out there that's called Northfield Township Supports Growth. There's well over 400 members on that, and in that they have discussed the sewer. They have discussed the growth of North Village. So this is something that is out in the public and people are made aware of it.
Okay. All right, the next item is the Township Manager Report and Update, which you have a copy, but is there anything you need to highlight from this, Mr. Ains?
I'm sorry, Madam Supervisor, you got a board member.
We have another item?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, I indicated in the report that the work on non-motorized plan on the sidewalk has been completed. The sidewalk was tilting and sinking, and so we have brought in a company that has rectified that and has pointed out deficiencies in the original design of some of these areas, but it predated the last project. It goes back many years, and it's past the time that is warranted by the contractor or the engineering firm. But it has been corrected now, and now there's free passage from downtown to the elementary school. We've got a couple trees we are going to remove by the community center. That's been talked about since I came a year ago. The employee handbook, we are receiving comments from the employees themselves, and they had a meeting again today to put together their comments to present to the board as to what they would like to see included in the handbook. The 75 Barker, we did work with the Kiwanis to get it up to code for a temporary usage. I want to thank Chief Wagner and his people for the inspection and seeing to it that it got taken care of. And the architect that you authorized us to bring in to evaluate 75 Barker, to give you an idea of what it would cost to bring it up to code, has given me a preliminary report, and he has promised me that by the 17th of October I will have his final report. That's the Wednesday before the next board meeting, so I'd like it to be on the agenda for the next board meeting to discuss his recommendations, what you'd like to do with it. In addition, you could tell the heating, air conditioning has continued to be a problem here. And I had him and an associate who's a mechanical engineer go through the building. Now, again, want to thank Chief Wagner for showing them top to bottom, because he's crawled through every space in the building, I believe. But they're putting together a proposal as to what they think needs to be done to rectify the issues, some of which date back to the original building, and to do it in a way that would be phased so you could tackle what needs to be done immediately and spread out the cost over a period of time. And then on the RFP, I would point out that the engineer or planner and I had worked with the board to come up with the request for proposal. It was advertised extensively. The township on the list of expenditures tonight in the report, you do have a list of the different places we've advertised it, and we did across the board in many areas. A lot of developers, including ones that were directly contacted. It's not a reflection on the effort or on the one proposal we got, but there's an awful lot of people busy out there with the economy the way it is. So we could go ahead and re-advertise if you want to at some point, or re-advertise parts of it. The proposal does not include the commercial areas, so those could be promoted. And as far as that's concerned, Mr. Lippin is going to come back for a request for qualifications on just the commercial properties. So we feel like there's a lot been worked on and accomplished. Ultimately, it's a decision by the board whether you want to proceed with this project or if you want to have a park or other things. But bottom line is you got to pay for any improvements. And if it's turned into a park, I've been working with parks 40 years now, and they don't come cheap. If you're going to improve them, you got to have money to do it. And right now you don't have the money. So the board would have to identify how you were going to develop funding to develop it that way. But that's your choice. And I had another project in another state where it was intended to be developed for condominiums. It stayed vacant so long that the people got used to as a park, and ultimately the council did not proceed with it. So the entire cost ended up falling on the taxpayers instead of sharing it with the developers. But whatever you would like us to do, Paul's a paid consultant, and essentially that's what I am too. And so we're here to help you in whatever way we can.
Okay.
Thank you. Look forward to answering any questions.
I would just like to mention that we did make a motion at our last meeting to move forward with RFQs for other potential proposals for the North Village. Has that been done, Mr. Lippens?
It has not been done yet.
Okay.
You requested a presentation from Lockwood tonight. I thought we
Sure.
could learn a little bit about their proposal.
Okay.
But I did look at it. I think it would be we could have it done within a week after we have this proposal.
Okay.
I don't, for your
That's
next
fine.
board meeting.
Thank
But
you.
I am aware that the motion was made, and I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. All right. Of course,
I have a question.
go ahead, Mr. Dockett.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear you say that you're not going to have the information until next 2 weeks from Monday, and our meeting's on Tuesday. You know, I just don't like to see us rush this stuff. I mean, you're not going to get it till Monday. Our meeting's on Tuesday. How are we going to get it? How are we going to be able to look at it and make us any sense of anything. I don't believe it should be on the next meeting if you're not gonna get it till the day before. And we're not gonna have it at all.
What are you talking about, Mr. Dockett?
I'm talking about, he just said that he's gonna have something from 75 Barker.
For 75 Barker, I asked the architect to have it in here by the 17th, which is the Wednesday before your meeting on the 23rd. And by getting it on the 17th, you'll have it in your packet on the 18th, and you'll have the weekend to study it before it comes before the board.
We won't have time to check on much on the weekend, you know.
Well,
I don't know what the rush is.
yeah, you don't have to rush it. You can table it if you want further investigation.
Okay. All right, let's see, correspondence and announcements. Do we have any correspondence? I know we got some from Mr. Huff, which all of you have received, and from Ms. Holliday, which all of you have received. Ms. Bellinger, go ahead.
Correspondence that we received, the board did receive a letter from Poly Market where they're rather disturbed by with the situation with the liquor license that was approved for a competing business. So I want to let you know that we did receive that, and they're very troubled by all that, and let it be known to the board. The other one is, of course, Udo. I do have that here where he outlined that this evening. David Gordon, of course, I have his message as well, and he made the point that we talked about. One resident was referring once again to an ongoing sound problem, a noise, and so forth. This resident lives on Noller. I see that was also covered in the code enforcement's notes. Then Leslie had a presentation that we heard a little bit about regarding some suggestions for the new property. Another resident by name of Scott, he was very pleased with what has gone on at the park with regards to cutting the 1 mile trail around there, and he was instrumental in helping to get this 1 mile loop put together, and him and Dennis, I want to thank them for coming out and assisting Parks and Rec with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Chick?
Hi. I just have an announcement. The Northfield Township Planning Commission is holding a public open house. Everybody that's here or listening, I hope that you plan to attend. It's October 17th, Wednesday, from 7 to 8:30. We'll be looking at suggestions and ideas for for the review of our master plan. It's an update. So please, please, please plan to attend. It's very important. I put it on every Facebook site I could find and talked to a lot of people about it. And there's a lot of flyers out there.
Good.
So, yeah, make an effort. It's really worth it. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Manley?
Yeah, I just want to put it out there to the public that we're still looking for election inspectors for the November 6th election. It does pay $13 an hour, so if anybody out there is interested, it's a long day, but it's very well worth it, and it's a great experience. So if anybody's interested out there, please contact myself or my deputy clerk. Thanks.
Great. Okay. October 23rd, which is our next meeting, we'll be having a closed session ahead of our 7 o'clock meeting to deal with code enforcement issues. Just to let everyone know and the board know that we'll be needing to do that. There's going to be an Oktoberfest by the Whitmore Lake Chamber on Tuesday, October 13th from 4:30 to 7 at Moose Ridge, and this raises money for Whitmore Lake High School students.
Where was that at again, please?
Whitmore Lake, it's going to be at Moose Ridge. There should be a flyer in your box, and there's flyers out there for anyone who's interested. A wine tasting, beer or wine tasting, $25. Okay.
What's the date on that one from Polly's Market? I never got it. I just and I've been picking up.
Yeah, it was Saturday. No, it was Saturday. I forwarded it to you, Mr. Dockett, today, I believe.
Oh, well, no wonder I don't have it. That's just another thing that I don't have.
No, it was because Mr. Ho had your email address wrong, and it didn't go directly to you, so I forwarded it today.
I do not have email. My email comes here,
I
and
know.
I put it in my box.
I know. Okay. Next item is
Madam
approve-
Chair, real quick, down
Yes.
here. If I can make an announcement for the Police and Fire Department open house
Yes.
this Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. Again, 1 to 4 p.m. this Sunday for the Police and
Police
Fire
and Fire.
Department open house.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you going to have a helicopter there? Or
We are
any-
hoping to. It's a
Okay.
really, really busy time for fire departments and open houses because this is Fire Prevention Week. So we are hoping to. We do have a car that we're going to use the Jaws of Life on, so there will be a Jaws demonstration. And
Okay.
I believe it's a better than 50% chance that we'll have a helicopter. So
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. 1 to 4, Sunday.
Yep.
All right.
I forgot to mention one thing.
Ms. Bellinger?
I forgot to mention that Parks and Rec will be having a meeting this Thursday at 7 p.m. here at the Township Building. Thank you.
All right. Our next item, though, is approval of minutes. So does anyone have any changes on page 1?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think it would, let me get my little glasses on here. On page 1, on the first call to public, near the bottom, with reference to the Senate Bill 637, I think that the words "in opposition to" may wish to be changed to "regarding." The reason I say this is because one name is listed in here that is listed as a supporting our measure, and indeed that resident was not in support. So to cover the base, I figured maybe we just remove "in opposition to" and replace that with the word "regarding."
Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
catch. Any more changes on page 1? Okay. Page 2. In the second column, the fourth bullet, someone would be willing to pay more taxes for a park as opposed to a part. And then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The ninth dot should end with loop instead of look. Any more changes? Any changes on page 3? No. Page 4? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Motion by Chalkley, support by Chick. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. That passes 7-0. Okay, the next item is a presentation from Lockwood Company, and I'm glad you could come tonight. I'm glad we get a PowerPoint, so that's wonderful. So would you like to come up and introduce everyone and share with us what you have for us tonight?
Thank you. Good evening.
Good
We
evening.
appreciate everyone's time. I'm Mark Cornick.
You'll have to hold it right up to your mouth,
Right up
Mr.
close.
Cornick. Take it
Sure.
out. Okay, there, then you can walk around.
So I'm Mark Cornick. I'm with Lockwood. I specialize in new development and acquisition for the company. With me is Mark Lockwood to my left. Mark is president of the various Lockwood companies, but the Lockwood companies have been solely focused on building different forms of residential real estate since the 1940s. So it's a third generation company. Mark's the third generation. Next to him is Jordan London. Jordan's the architect on the project. Jordan, your company's been around about 50 years, is that? Almost that, yeah. Jordan is the principal of the firm, studied architecture at U of M. And you'll be hearing from these guys, I'm sure, as we get into question and answers. I thought it would be helpful to take 10 or so minutes to kind of walk through the concept plan for the entire 23 acres and then discuss the phasing of it and the financial, well, I think I'll get into the financials after I talk about the overall real estate plan. But also talk about, I think, some of the potential benefits of this, because at total build out, you know, this is going to be over $40 million of development, which is going to be taxed in some form or another. So I don't know exactly what the mill rate is here, but that, in addition to just kind of the increase of people living there, people visiting here, patronizing businesses around here. I'm not an economic development person, but I mean, these are the things that can infuse dollars into the community. Of course, you want smart development, and I get that. But you really have a luxury, I think. There are very few pieces of land that are zoned for developers to come in and build exactly what they want. So you are the gatekeepers. You control development. I don't think there's any possibility of a runaway train here because you control what can come. They're going to need a zoning change. And so you're in an enviable position from that respect. But let me jump into this plan. Well, I wish it was bigger, but what we've done here to help everybody understand, I know somebody commented how complex it is. What would happen when? What's going to go first? What would go second? I can help clarify some of that. All right, so phase one, which would go first, is what you see in red. So everything from Main Street, right, back to the train tracks, essentially. And there are two main components to this. The most prime land, which is up closest to the water, up to Main Street, would be a town green with a central pavilion or gazebo for presentations, but I also envision that being a place to escape the sun at some point in the future when people are using your beach. This is about 5 acres. And it includes public restrooms, which are here. Behind that is Lockwood Independent Living, which is a form of senior housing that is for people who are largely independent. They just don't want to take care of their own house anymore, for instance. They may not want to, they may be a widow or widower. They don't want to have to prepare meals for one. Those will be options available to them in an independent living setting. This would be 120 to 140 apartment units. Our plan at the time is a combination of studios, 1s and 2 bedrooms. Studios are about 550 feet, 2 bedrooms about 850 feet. I'm sorry, 1 bedroom's 850, and 2 bedrooms just over 1,000 square feet. So that's phase one. Phase one, I mean, this is very visible because it's on Main Street, but it also has a lot of visibility on 23. And I've lived in Dexter for the last 15 years. I come by here about once a week. And there has not been an awful lot of new development. I don't know what the traffic count is on 23. I'm sure it's over 100,000 vehicles a day. When those 100,000 plus vehicles look down and they see a very attractive building and town green, I think what is going to happen is you're going to draw some significant attention to Whitmore Lake that you can parlay however you want. I mean, you control the zoning, as I said. So you can say no to anybody who comes in with an idea you don't like, but they do need to go through you. Phase two would be residential housing. Let me show you a rendering first. Sorry about that. So this is a rendering of what the senior housing piece could look like. We have built properties that look very similar to this in other locations. This would be standing somewhere on the town green over towards the post office. And I was starting to talk about phase 2, which would be residential. I think most likely attached residential. These are 2 units attached together. This particular property is about 1,900 square feet each. So I think we are now getting into what we call cottage living because there's a variety of people. There are people who don't want to go into, they want low maintenance, so they want new. They want single floor living. This is actually a single floor design. But we are showing about 50 units of this on the site plan, which I can go back to. Okay, so I think this is east and this is west. So you can see it's divided, bifurcated here. But in total, that's 50 units. If you space them apart and you make them bigger, it'll be less. You could maybe do even a little more dense development. But the idea here is, you just don't see a lot of new housing being built except in very select markets. And that's the economics of building residential. The cost is what it is, whether we build it here in Northfield Township or we build it in Northfield, right? The construction costs are the same. It's just if people will pay $100,000 more for this house in Northville, right? That's why you may be seeing that stuff being built in certain places. It doesn't quite make sense yet here, but you are going to have a swirl of activity, right, when you build phase 1. And so we, it could be, I can't predict when, but it may not be terribly long before the numbers make sense. That's why this is phase 2, just so you know. Lockwood is proposing not to buy that now, that we've asked for an option for 3 years at a fixed price to buy this land. And that's what we're thinking for phase 2. The other pieces, which are small but they're significant, are here on Main Street. So up here, that is earmarked for a building that could be as big as 7,500 square feet per floor. And I think the consensus is it would be a 2-story building. So you might see retail on the ground floor with apartments above it. You might see retail on the ground floor with professional office space above it. We're primarily a residential developer. That's why that piece has been carved out. We have nothing to do with that other than as we do the work here, we will get the water lines there and the gas and the electric to the border of that property, the infrastructure. There's a second Main Street parcel, which is right here. That again could be retail and or office, I think. It's not our niche, but that land, I think, is going to become increasingly valuable, and I think it gets more valuable once this is happening. My guess is the value goes up, right, once this is happening. If you were to try to market this today without anything certain happening here, I don't know that you're going to see much change on Main Street. I could be wrong. But, you know, why haven't, you know who comes through your office in planning looking to do things on Main Street, you know, to buy buildings and renovate them and so on. So you have a good handle on that. The benefits to the community are, you know, we would have somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 to 140 residents in this independent living property. The averages of their, these are people who can go out walking, mostly they can. They have money to spend, they don't have big mortgages. The average nest egg for somebody over 65 is 150 grand. I think that excludes any housing they might own. So let's say if you average in what their house might be worth, you know, these are people, 120 people times $250,000 in net worth with incomes of $35,000, $45,000, $55,000 a year. And they're not paying for anybody else at this point. They're largely singles. If you have the businesses here, they will patronize them. We have one in Waterford. A lot of our customers go over to the Starbucks. I think there's a Panera nearby they can get to, and so on, and they're customers there. So, thanks, Jordan. So, in addition to taxes, you know, you're going to get dollars circulating in your local, you know, your local establishments. So now I'm just going to jump ahead, and hopefully this is not too unclear, but I want to show you the economics of our proposal and by phase. Okay. So phase one is the top section. That's those two parcels you might recall, the town green and the parcel for us to build our senior property. We would pay to the township or whoever the legal owner is $575,000 for that. With that money would be entirely funneled into building the town green. You have to build driveways, you have to build parking, you've got a gazebo, you got to get water to the restroom, you got to build the restroom. It's all itemized here. None of that's going to Lockwood, except that we are a general contractor, and we would charge a general contractor fee of 8%. You can go talk to contractors, that's very fair, probably more than fair. But we've got people who are going to be professionals who are going to be here every day, and so we have to get paid for that. That's phase one. We would start our process immediately once we have a written agreement that, you know, we're willing to move forward here. Our process is not simple. I mean, we have to get full construction drawings drawn up, presented to the township for approval. We do most of our financing through MISTA. We have to go to MISTA and work with them, and that takes some time. But my point is, if we have an agreement, we're going forward. The realistic timeline on phase one, we put this in an earlier proposal. I think we expect we would be in the ground about 18 months out. Follow that by about 15 to 18 months of construction. So 2.5, 3 years, it would be done. Town green would be completed, senior housing would be completed. The Main Street piece, which is down here, that we're just, you know, we're creating, but somebody else will run those. if a month from now you have a buyer or a user that wants to take those off of your hand, they theoretically could be completed before phase one. They're much smaller buildings, you know, so it's not out of the question. Phase two is the housing piece out on the wings. That would be an option we have up to 3 years to exercise. We would pay $200,000 for that. That's quite a bit less than phase one, but land values, as you know, when you go out on the wings, you're backed up to the highway and the train tracks. That's, you know, very inferior land compared to the town green, which is the prime land here. And I didn't mention the beach, right? The beach is, as money comes in to the township through this development, we are taking care of the phase one infrastructure in town green. Phase two, if we pay $200,000, the township can decide what it wants to do first with that. Do you want to go and do the beach and swim area next? Do you want to put a park or a playscape in? Do you want to put some statuary out there in the town green? You want to put an extended bike path, walking path around the whole thing? That would be your decision. But supplementing the phase two land, if we exercise that option, is the phase one, the Main Street land. Now, I've been in real estate for 31 years. I've done every type of property. I've done a lot of retail, including Crossroads Mall and Portage and 10,000-foot strip centers in Florida. And the variability of what this land might be worth is very extreme. If you create energy in a place where people want to be, that land could double in value. It could triple in value. If you don't create it, it's not worth much at all. And so it's usually, you know, land is, for retail, is based on, well, what's the price per buildable foot? So if I can build a 15,000-foot building on that corner, right, I'll pay $25 a buildable foot. Well, $25 times a 15,000-foot building is about 400 grand, 375, right? But if you create the right environment, you know, it could be worth twice that. So I put a range here because this is going to be, depending on how well everything is executed and received, you are going to have valuable land that you can sell here. And I put a range of $400,000 to $1 million. I'm not warranting that. I'm telling you that based on my experience. It's possible if you do things well. So phase one, we pay you $575,000, which is quite a bit more than you've got invested in this property. And it's being invested entirely into a public square used by the public. Everything after that is gravy to the township. You know, this could be a home run for the township. That's just the proceeds of selling land off for development. That doesn't consider 40+ million of new property on your tax rolls. So that's it in a nutshell. And we'll take questions, comments.
Okay. Board members have any questions at this time? Mr. Dockett.
I'm getting ahead of myself, but what do you pay for the 200 for phase two if you walk? I mean, you say you're going to pay $200,000 if you want to buy it.
Right.
But what if I don't know where the 3 years start? It's going to take you
Sure.
3 years to build the first phase, or so that when's the 3 years start, or 2 years, whatever it is.
Right.
And if you maybe you have no intentions of ever doing anything else, this might be a sell job. I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying, what if it is? what do you pay if you don't if you don't buy it? Nothing?
No, we never thought of that because generally, when somebody gets an option, they're not paying on the way out. But, sorry. Yeah, there's no proposal to pay if we don't execute.
Okay, that's all. I just, and as far as developing it, you know, we spent $26,000, and we got one bidder, and that's you. So I don't see him standing in line to work on this park. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Chick?
So outside of phase one, into phase two, there's green space there too. Is that going to be part of the community green as well?
Let me go back to that
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
So see in phase two, all that green area, is that still part of the community area as well? That is. Do you know
Yeah,
how
that is community area.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it is, but it's not, because it's outside of the red,
Right?
it would not be developed as part of phase one.
Correct.
We would, it would be the option of the township, that there would be money to develop this from the phase two option payment.
Do you have any idea how many acres that is? I know that the town was actually asking for more than 5 or 6 acres of town green, and if there's an additional piece there,
Yeah. This area here, you mean?
yep,
Everything here?
yeah,
I think this is about 5 here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this is an odd shape, but it looks a little smaller, maybe 4 acres.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Less. He thinks a little less.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
3.
I think about 3.
Well, it's 23 acres altogether,
right.
Oh.
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
That's what
23
we-
altogether.
That's what we bought.
Okay, correct. Do you have more questions, Ms. Chick? Okay. Go ahead.
On item number 5, the town will grant to Lockwood for the senior living development a payment in lieu of taxes, whereby Lockwood will pay 4% of the actual sheltered rents generated by the property, 2% during the first 5 years. Do you have some kind of a figure on what that amount would be?
I do, yeah. And I've shared with Paul and Steve this. I don't have it with me, but we shared our projections. At 4%, our first year would be, as I recall, $81,000. So 2% would be half of that. Yeah. Sure.
Mr. Kornick, do you have more? Oh, okay. So does a development like this have special status with the state and for taxing, which is why you asked for payment in lieu of taxes? Is this would this be nonprofit, and so is there a different tax implications for us?
Sure. So the pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes, is part of the Michigan State Housing MSHDA, which is
Right.
the Michigan State Housing
Closer,
Authority
please.
Act of 1966, enabling legislation. So it falls, the ownership structure would fall under one of the qualifying ownership entities for that sort of property. In this case, it would be what's called a Limited Dividend Housing Association, LDHA. So there are 3 or 4 different sorts of ownership types that can fall under the state statute to be qualified for this sort of tax classification.
Okay. And so it's calculated on the rent, 4% or 2% of the rent, whichever is decided in the agreement with us, or is this something that's standard with the state?
It's what's decided in agreement with the township.
With the township.
So it's
Okay.
the act gives relatively wide latitude to townships, villages, and cities to take up a payment in lieu of taxes,
Okay.
and whatever that arrangement would be.
To negotiate something.
That's correct.
And then is the amount of taxes that you would pay, is that split up proportionally amongst all of the taxing authorities that we deal with?
Typically it is, or often it is.
Okay.
There are some ways to, if there are specific reasons, say that a taxing jurisdiction requires an additional payment, there are some ways to structure those sort of things into a payment in lieu of taxes. So say have a percentage of annual shelter rents that would be paid into the typical split for taxing jurisdictions. And then say for public safety, there was a, because of the character of the development, there may be more.
Okay. We might need more for EMS or something like that.
Something like that.
Okay.
There could be a separate agreement that would be considered a municipal services agreement that would call out a portion of that to be earmarked for a specific taxing authority.
Okay. Now, this area is part of our DDA. I don't know how that impacts our, bottom line with the DDA. Right now, we're at a negative capture, and my understanding then is, and maybe I'm wrong, is if this property doesn't has a taxable value of 0 after, it currently does, we may have some problems with ever capturing any money with our DDA. So I'd like a little more information on how our DDA is impacted by this whole project, and maybe our attorney can give us more information in the days ahead about that. But
Okay.
I am interested, unless you know.
I don't know without
Okay.
knowing more about how the DDA is structured and what the mechanism for capture is. I can't really answer that.
Okay. Mr. Lippens has an answer.
Yeah,
maybe.
well, I would offer some information on it, but I
Okay.
would say the pilot would exclude that part of the site from contributing to the DDA. You can't capture on no taxes, right? Which
Right.
is, I think, where your question is leading. But the structure of the financing that's being proposed is essentially proposing that some of the purchase price could be used for infrastructure, which is what your DDA can capture to bond against. So in a way, this part of the site would be contributing in the same way that a similar taxable use might be able to contribute to the DDA. I think the other thing to point out is that in talking about phase 2, there would be no pilot proposed for phase 2 because the idea is, or at least what we discussed with Lockwood, was that at least 50% of that would be retained for non-income capped or age-restricted housing, which would be a taxable use.
Okay.
And then you'd also be creating the 2 Main Street properties, which would also be a taxable use. So how this site was split up, how the ownership is used for even some of the public spaces, all of that would have to be negotiated as part of a purchase agreement should you decide to continue working with Lockwood. But in terms of impact of the DDA, I think DDA's ability to capture and to plan for downtown still would need to be considered on the other aspects of this development plan.
Okay. Ms. Bellinger.
So do I understand that the main phase 1 is strictly rentals? There's no property ownership? This is strictly
That's
120
correct.
and
That's correct.
140 rentals? Okay. Yeah, I actually am more inclined towards phase 2 than phase 1. I am very much adamant about having property ownership in the township. That's very important to me. But, yeah.
Okay.
It appears that you take a lot of pride in what you do, and you guys offer quality projects. But
Thank you.
I would like to see other options from other potential plans. And as overall in the vision, I don't really feel that the overall vision supported assisted living or senior living such the quantity of rentals for this parcel. It doesn't seem to fit the vision that the township all in all discussed and pretty much agreed upon. Like I said, there's a little interest in the condos, in a sense, an idea of property ownership, and I have senior center as far as senior condos. I think that would be reasonable, but I'm not very excited about a tall story rental unit. But I do give you kudos. I do believe you guys do have good product and good materials. I just don't know if this is the right thing at this location. That's just my feelings. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Zelnok.
I'd like to go back a little bit. I would like to go back to the pilot, the pay in lieu of taxes. So I'm just going to say we have maybe 5 entities the township has taxes. We have the state ed, we have the county taxes, I'm going to summarize it. We have police and fire, township, and then schools. So I'd say about 5 different entities. So, and we have obviously a millage rate against each of these entities. So do I take basically the 81,000 or actually the 40,000 to begin with and just have to take the percentage back to all these entities? Is that what happens?
That's typically what happens.
Okay, so that, well, at least thank you. That helps me understand that. And how is the rent calculated? Meaning, are you sending us a statement monthly? Is it calculated like our current assessment, meaning at the end of December, we assess your property, and then you're paying the same rate throughout the year?
So typically the way that, and there are a handful of different structures that we've seen in the 35 or so properties that we operate in Michigan currently. Typically, what's most common is the entity, because of the financing through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, is subject to third-party CPA audit. And typically what's done at that point in time is that the revenue component of the audit is provided to the township with the necessary information to make that calculation, and that's a once annual payment, typically paid in the first or second quarter of the year. Typically the audits are coming in March, so often the payments are structured to come in April.
Okay.
Okay, that answers my pilot. So if we weren't in the pilot, what would you typically think something like this would be assessed for? So, and similar, I mean, I just kind of looked at Westbrook Apartments next door. I don't know if it's similar. That's like 179,000 square feet, and they pay about 150,000 overall in taxes, 160,000. So I don't know how many square feet we're talking about your first phase. I don't recall.
I would have to look at the exact, but based on 120 to 140 units, would be slightly over 1,000 square feet per apartment.
Yeah.
So something in the 130
Comparable.
to 160,000
Yeah.
square feet.
So underneath the pilot program, then, the pay in lieu of taxes, it seems like there's a tax discount given.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's typically
Okay.
the purpose of the program.
Okay. All right. So at least my question on pilot, I think, is I understand the concept, or understand it, and I have a good feel for the numbers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Otto, did you have questions?
Yeah, to piggyback off of Lenore's questions, in the payment in lieu of taxes agreement, if Lockwood ever would decide to sell the properties after the 5 years, does that the lieu of taxes agreement transferable to the new party, or does it end?
Typically, the payment in lieu of taxes structure is tied to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority mortgage. So it's actually not typically subject to the ownership and a transfer of the ownership. What it's tied to is the Michigan State Housing Development Authority's mortgage still being outstanding and payable.
Okay.
Okay. So if you have, some of the units are subsidized and some are not. My understanding is 60% are market rate, and then 40% are subsidized. Is that true? And so I'm seeing $2,200 for the market rate and $950 for the subsidized.
Well, I think we have a little bit different. It's like any industry. The affordable housing industry has a lot of lingo. Typically, what we would consider subsidized housing is housing where there's a third-party payee, typically a government payee, who pays a portion of rent to the landlord in lieu of payment from the resident. In the case of this program that we're proposing, it falls under the tax-exempt bond program and through the state of Michigan, and the low-income housing tax credit program through the federal government. And what that means is that there's not a subsidy that's ongoing relative to the apartments. There's just a restriction on the rental rates. That's and the way that the rental rates are calculated is they're calculated based on a 30% of 60% of the area median income, less an allowance for resident paid utilities, divided by 12 for the monthly rent.
Okay.
And then any, I guess you could say, project support that comes in the form of equity support on the front end through the sale of low-income housing tax credits.
Okay. Will there be any retail in the bottom level of this complex? Anything that the public can access? A pharmacy, a bank, anything like that? Or is this just exclusively for the residents?
Typically, these developments are exclusively for the residents. We've had some discussion with Paul and with Steve about ways that we can maybe incorporate some components of the common area amenity space of the building to be structured in such a way that they're a public amenity and in some way, whether that be through forming a cafe or bistro that's open to the public, that may be on the water or something along those lines. But we're an early concept, so we're still trying to work out the details of what could be possible there.
Okay. Well, Ms. Bellinger.
Since you've been involved in these kind of properties around the state, do you happen to have an idea or feel for the impact on emergency medical services that do? How does that change the need, and how much need will there be for emergency medical services with these kind of facilities that you have seen when you place them in communities and so forth? And also a question for Chief: if some structure of this nature and height is developed in the township, do we have the equipment to access and ladder trucks tall enough and so forth?
I would have to look at if it is as it shows a 4-story building, our ladder would reach it as long as we have access around the building.
Okay.
And to my question about how much more need is there for emergency medical? Typically, we're talking senior assisted living or senior housing and so forth, like this, high density in this manner.
Okay.
Sure, we have some data on that. I don't have exact numbers off the top of my head, but I know we've gone through this recently because the question was asked.
I would like to see that data. I think the board should be provided with this data.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'd like to give an opportunity in case there's an interest here. We have 2 DDA members and 2 Downtown Planning Group members, that actually put the synthesis plan together. And so if our DDA chair or if Mr. Sechrist, who is on the Downtown Planning Group, would like to ask a question or say anything, feel free to come on up.
I'd like to ask one.
Okay, well, let's let Ms. Griffith come up.
Barb Griffith, DDA. I just want to point out that we do not capture any DDA TIF money on residential of any sort. So phase 1, we would not, because it's not taxed as usual. could be construed as a business, but, and then phase 2 definitely wouldn't if it's zoned residential.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Okay.
Did you
well-
say that there's no money gained through residential? Is that what you said? Is that correct? The DDA does not?
Correct. If, with the way our town is, where we have resident, business, the DDA capture skips the residential, just takes the right-of-way. So any improvements made by the DDA would be improved along residential areas, but there would be no tax capture from the taxes from residential areas.
Okay. Okay. All right, Mr. Sechrist, come on up.
Jack Seekers from the DDA. Just a quick question. Is phase 2 scalable? Downward, I would say, from where it is now, or is that the minimum that it would be?
It's able to be scaled down.
Yeah.
I think it would be.
Mhm.
It would be. We'd have to
Okay.
to look more closely at it,
Sure.
look at what the infrastructure investment for the utilities and things like that. But I don't think there's for the senior single building senior component. There's a really I would say strict critical mass or size that a project that type has to be to support the services and amenities offered at the development. But for the cottage type buildings, there's not specifically something like that. But that being said, as Mark Koronek alluded to, with respect to the value of land being driven by, from a real estate development perspective, being driven by what can be built on it, a downscaling of a development would mean a corresponding downscaling of price based on the fact that the cost per residential unit would increase if the residential units are scaled down and the price were static for the land.
Okay, okay. Ms. Chick?
So my concern is because it is solely senior living, I shouldn't say most, there will be a percentage of seniors there that have mobility issues. There'll be a percentage of seniors that have transportation issues. Without the benefit of having some retail associated with phase 1 and trying to depend on somebody else coming in and do that for you, what is there to attract seniors to that? We don't have a bank, we don't have a pharmacy, we don't have those things, or a coffee, well, we do have a coffee shop, but it is in with walking distance, but what would attract a senior to this facility if we can't offer them the amenities that they need to be comfortable in?
Well, our buildings at our senior independent living communities have a lot of amenities included with them. So we'll have a community dining room, bistro, various social and gathering spaces like some common areas that can be used for programming, bringing in guest entertainers and speakers and things of that nature, beauty shop. And in addition to that, all of our senior independent living communities have transportation services that are included in rent for all residents. So we have, at all of our communities, we have a shuttle bus that is able to take residents to the businesses that they would like to patronize, grocery or drugstores or the bank or whatever that may be.
Okay. I see this is potentially an opportunity for aging in place. I mean, I think we have older individuals who live in the community, and maybe they're in a 2 or 3 bedroom house now. They can't take care of the yard, but that would free up some of the homes for families to move in, but they wouldn't have to leave their community. And we just lost 2 members of our commissions to other communities because there was nowhere for them to go here. And so they had to resign and they moved away. And since I was on, so I see this as something that could have a positive impact. I think there's a lot of potential here. I'm not seeing all the numbers yet, and I'm a numbers spreadsheet kind of person with the plan out, because I know there's this piece, but there's the other pieces too that the township needs to be concerned about. So I believe there's potential here. I would like to see all the numbers played out over time, and so that will take a little more, back and forth or negotiation, but I think there's potential here for, that's my feeling, for something that could be helpful. And I don't see it as, yes, homeownership is awesome, but do we really want to eliminate people from our community who don't have the tens of thousands of dollars to put into a home? Like, you're not welcome here anymore, or something like that. So I think about it that way. And so this may be an opportunity for people who no longer want to own a home or can't own a home because of their income. I see it as a way for them to stay in the community and, and contribute. So I would like to see a little more, but Ms. Manley.
I have a question, and I think it's what Mary Devlin asked also. Can you give us an example of what the rent would include, and again, what the rents may be?
Sure, I don't have the rents in front of me, but typically for market rate apartments, typically ranging from $2,000 to $3,000 a month, in that range, which is inclusive of more than just rent. Typically included for all apartments are transportation services, coordinated activities, so there's a full-time activities director at all of our senior communities who handle programming and engagement for residents to create social vibrancy within the community. And those aspects, as well as all access to amenities and so forth, are included. Typically what's excluded from basic rent, but included in some of the higher price points for market rate apartments, in that $2,500 to $3,000 a month range, are typically included dining service, so typically 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, housekeeping service, and laundry service. Housekeeping service is either weekly or every other week, and laundry service is the same way, either weekly or every other week.
Okay, and then when you're figuring out the money for the PILT, does all that come out of that? So you have $3,000, and then it says, less utilities, so how does all that other stuff work out of that rent payment?
Well, the rent component is the portion allocable to rent as opposed to
so out of
the
that
business
2,000, it could be
component.
500 after you take out transportation.
It's typically more like out of 2,500, it might be 1,500, 1,600 a month would be rent, and the service component would be somewhere in the 900 to 1,000 a month range of that 2,500 or 3,000 a month.
Ms. Otto?
Is any of phase one?
I wish you'd look over here
Oh, I'm
once in a while.
sorry, but
You're sorry.
I'll
that's
call
for
on
sure.
you next,
That-
Mr.
that's for-
Dockett.
That's for sure.
I will. Go ahead, Ms. Otto.
Any part of phase one, is any part of it being licensed for assisted living?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Dockett, go ahead.
I would like to say, if we're going to do any development in Northfield Township, that I would not vote for any company to subsidize their taxes. I mean, if we're going to have a development, we need our taxes. So I don't understand, or I think I might understand where this is going, but I don't think we need to subsidize anybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Zelnok?
So I have a question, a couple questions. Probably this is to Mr. Lippens. Was this proposal scored, according to our scoring that we had? Or I know the first one was, but
The revised proposal?
Yes. Mhm.
I did not score the revised proposal. We could, but since the board requested a presentation from Lockwood
Okay.
and had provided specific guidance on what they wanted to see in that proposal, we moved forward to bring you the proposal.
Okay. Well, I think it would be useful to score it.
To give it a revised score?
I do.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
The next one is, so this is for us at the township. So if we go forward, were to go forward with this proposal, what would we have to do to our sewer to accommodate it? Could we currently accommodate in its current state?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
However, in talking with both the engineer and the treatment plant operator, they feel the retention tank is a necessary part whether you do any new development or not in order to handle the existing situation. And that's where we've mentioned that a large number of treatment plants have gone ahead and put these in. And so while some people may say this is an additional cost of this project or that this doesn't have to be done, at some point you should be doing it. You've been talking about doing it for a long time. I'd also point out that we are not talking about the phase that's discussed as a wastewater treatment plant renovation, because the engineer feels that's at least 10 to 20 years down the road. We're talking about the retention tank, and that continues to climb in cost because of the delays in implementing it.
And in addition to that, I mean, we talk about the basin. Is there any other improvements that need to be done, such as any trunk lines that would have to be improved for this?
When I've discussed it with the treatment plant superintendent, no. For this project, he feels there would not be a need for doing something further with the sewer lines. And that doesn't mean in the future there won't be a need to it, and I have addressed with him what you have talked about, Madam Supervisor, with the cross connections and sewer lines and so forth. And his response to me, which I have to accept since he's dealing with this all the time, is that it's not necessary at this point.
I have other questions, but if other people want to.
Ms. Chick.
I was just wondering if, because I was unaware, and probably most people here were unaware of the services that are actually available in the project. Is there something that you can, like, give pamphlets from your other places that people could actually see what you offer? So it might spark some interest.
So you're asking for some
Brochures.
brochures, marketing
Yeah.
material, pictures, things of that
Yeah.
nature, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Be
we
happy
know a
to
little
provide
bit
that.
more about what you're offering.
Sure.
Okay. Ms. Bellinger, we're going to have to wrap
I
this
believe
up.
the question was answered. It dovetailed with the question regarding what would need to be done with our treatment plant if we move forward with a project of this scope, both Phase 1 and Phase 2. Would we need to do more than just a basin? We're being told a basin we kind of are long overdue for, but I'm curious, does a basin cover all these additional hookups? Thank you.
If I could respond, it's my understanding from the engineer and the treatment plant superintendent that you need the basin for handling the large flows and equalizing the flow for adequate treatment. And so while stopping the basin from being built would probably stop any future growth in the community, it's not tied to the fact that the growth is occurring. It's tied that there is a need for it. And then when we've talked about the treatment plant itself and getting federal grants and evaluating the condition of the plant, that's why the community went after several years ago what's called a SOL grant, which is an asset management plan for the wastewater treatment plant. And we are in the midst of that, and that is being paid 90% by the state government. And we've got already been reimbursed for a portion of it, and we have until December 2020 to complete that. But what they're looking at is every sewer line, every manhole, every piece of equipment, every pump station to evaluate what's the life expectancy, what the current condition is, and what it takes to maintain it. And when the board approved the rate increase a while back, it was only to catch up with inflation to meet the current operation and maintenance needs. So the basin's not tied to that. You've already approved doing what you need to for the operation and maintenance to keep you up to where you need to be according to both the superintendent and the engineer.
Okay. Okay, well, we should move on here. It's 8:30.
I do have a couple more, though.
You do? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
So, based on your proposal, is it saying that the township must spend the $575,000 on the amenities? Or is it at the township's option?
I think that we'd have our proposal contemplates that would be what the funds would be earmarked for, because I think part of our interest in the project is in being a part of improving the area and providing a nice setting for development for prospective future residents, as well as driving future value for any future residential development. In terms of the specifics of that, we're open to further discussion on that.
So basically you're saying yes, is what I hear.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the next one, just clarification on like your first page, it says construction of phase 1 and 2 will be completed on or about the same date. So what are you talking about, phase 1 and phase 2?
Does it say construction of phase 1 and phase 2 will be completed on or about the same date? Because if it does, that's a mistake.
That's what it says.
Okay.
I think on
What
bullet
was-
point 4, so I wasn't sure what you meant by that.
Yeah. All that was, I think, meant there was, phase 1 is the town green and the senior housing, and those two things will be basically completed at the same time.
Okay.
And just curious that your cost of the town green changed from proposal 1 to proposal 2?
Well, yeah,
slightly?
we did. We met with Paul and Steve, and our initial proposal was to do
510?
more public improvement initially, but to share it as partners with each other.
Right.
We were, directed that, well, we don't know that we want to use funds that way, so can you guys pay for everything?
Okay.
And so that's what you have.
Well, your initial proposal for the town green said it was $510,000, and then the second proposal for the town green said it's $575,000.
Yeah, we added something in. I don't remember what it was off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
it didn't look apparent what was changed. Just one more comment. I mean, has the Downtown Development Group or the DDA had any input on this since they were a part of the synthesized plan? Do they, I mean, I don't know, have they looked at it? Have they given their comments or on this since they were a part?
If I could address, and then you're welcome to as well. We
That's-
received
finish
the
my
letter
questions.
from the DDA,
Yeah.
which the board received as well. We were instructed by the board to have the preliminary discussions with this group, and everything is negotiable. And so we were instructed to bring this back to the board. And one of the things we've talked about is how you want to proceed if you want to proceed. If you don't want to proceed, then that ends the process. If you want to proceed and look at it further, you've discussed the option of having a committee formed, appointed by this board, which could include various commission members, DDA members, etc. So there is that opportunity. Or like everyone else in the public, they have the opportunity to give input, but we've not specifically gone back to their group. And in talking to our supervisor, she's been the primary liaison with them. So generally I get feedback through her, other than the letter.
Right. The board specifically just had Mr. Ains and Mr. Lippens deal with Lockwood, so The rest of us really haven't been that involved in it. Mr. Lippens?
Before we move away from the presentation with Lockwood, there were a few clarifications for questions that were asked that I know are important to some board members. And I think Lockwood was prepared to answer some of them, so I just wanted to bring them up while you guys still have the floor.
Okay.
One is, you talked about the acreage specifically for the town green site, but we know there's open space in all the other components too. There's a trail, there's accessible open areas in the site, and I thought you were going to present a calculation about the total amount of open space on the site. While you look for that, I'll ask the other two, and then we can kind of follow it up. The other question was on age-restricted housing. What is the eligible age of residents? And I guess I'll just answer that one because we know it is 55. So any resident who's 55 years could qualify to live in this facility. Most of the residents we heard are older than that, but it would be open to residents at the age of 55. And then the third item, which is a question that I'd like you to follow up on, is job creation. So you mentioned the services that are going to be at the facility. How many employees do you think will be there? And then you could also speak to, during construction, how many jobs might be created through the construction of this.
So in terms of permanent employment, typically for development of the size and scale, we'd have 17 to 20 full-time associates on site, handling the services, handling management, maintenance, leasing, so on. On the construction side, you have that number?
Yeah, our master director of construction, he said from start to finish there would be 175 to 200 people who would have a hand in that, be on site and actually building on a normal day, busy day, because there are phases, about 85 people on a busy day working construction.
Okay. All right.
If I can follow up on that, Madam Chair. So how many people do you think you would employ in the building itself once it was up and running?
He said
So
17 to 20.
Was that 17 to 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then we went into construction.
Do you have a number on the open space?
It's about 60
Okay. Okay.
The open space calculations are excluding building footprints and paving for all phases. There's about 68.3% would remain open space, green space, so on the entire site.
Okay.
Is open space also parking or no?
No.
No. Parking and building footprints do not count.
Okay. Yeah. That's any grass, or whatever.
So
Okay.
That would be anything not paved, not with the building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I know the two things that we talked about last time was, we thought, or I think most of us thought that the town green was kind of small. And I'd still like to see some more numbers. Sounds like Steve and Paul might have gotten some more numbers, but so we could see those.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that the numbers that are included on the phasing document is the acreage for each phase, but each phase also includes a public component and building component, and you could separate out that open space component, which the way the site will be designed will be to make the public space appear to be accessible by the public. We're not creating private space on the green. So even the way that the houses face the roads and face the open space, the whole site will be designed to be really a community accessible area, to feature the parks, to bring people around the sites on the trails. So the figure, we were targeting that somewhere around 60% of the site would be retained in that manner. The first proposal you saw, it was really kind of all separate. And what this proposal does is it collects most of that into one green, which is what the township wanted. It is not as large as the green that was shown on the synthesis plan, but the total amount of public space is similar.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Dockett, last call here. and
I
we'll go
tried
on.
to get this in when we were talking about the tank, about building the tank. I do not accept that Northfield Township sanitary customers, the people that are on the sewer, should spend millions of dollars to build a holding tank for stormwater. So the sanitary sewer should not be for stormwater. It should be for sanitary. And so we know that it goes from 700,000 to over 2 million when it rains. So I think we ought to try to fix what's wrong with it, rather than, we wouldn't need the tank if we don't need to do all this rainwater that's coming into our sewer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda now, where we have authorize the attorney, planner, and township manager to obtain and review a formal development proposal from Lockwood for the North Village site. What is the board feeling about this item at this point? Are we feeling positive that we should get something a little more formal? I'm going to start with Ms. Chick.
Yeah, I do. I would like to see more detail, more information, more financials.
Detail, okay.
I would like to see more detail on financials as well.
Okay, so.
Again, same thing we've been
More
asking
thing?
for, financials.
Okay.
I guess my concern is we've been asking for it.
Right.
And we're
Still asking.
still
Well,
asking.
in,
Right.
in any phase of a project, you don't get the ROMs right up front.
Yeah.
You get high-level ROMs, and then you dig into the details.
Yeah.
So now we're asking to dig into the detail.
Yeah. Ms. Bellinger?
I really would like to see some other options. You know, this is the only one that we've received, and I don't want to be enamored by just a single first and only thing that's come around. So I'm very cautious. I would actually prefer to hold off on this until we see if we get any more information, any other options. Like I say, I believe that they do have a quality product, but I'm hesitant to jump on something without other options.
Okay.
I don't think that we closed the door.
No.
This still doesn't commit us to anything. We haven't closed the door to other options.
Right.
I understand that, but
We could potentially just do one phase with Lockwood, and then have other providers or other developers come in for the other phases. Is that correct, Mr. Lippens? Especially if we put it out for an RFQ, and in fact, for the retail components, that would be a good idea. So I don't see any reason to shut the door here on Lockwood. I think they do have a quality product, and I would like more information so we can make a good decision. I'd also think it would be a good idea to have some other eyes looking at the materials ahead of the meeting. So I didn't get to see anything really ahead of time. It's hard to ask the questions, and it would be helpful if the DDA or, we just kind of got a little feel from some other groups in the community when we're putting these numbers together to make sure all the questions were asked. And so I really would like, Mrs. Griffith, and Mr. Sechrist to take a look at some of that too. Not to necessarily all of us be at the table, but to just look at what we're getting so that we have a complete kind of picture. So.
You have a consensus?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I would like to make a motion to authorize the attorney, the planner, and the township manager to obtain and review more financial details. I don't think that we're at a point where you have to go to the whole engineering of the place yet, right, Mr. Lippens? we could still get more information without them investing incredible amounts of money in drawings that would fit right on top of the place, right?
So I guess I would make the request that you provide a list of specific details that you want for the benefit of the
Okay.
Lockwood Group.
Yes.
And if it is that you want feedback from a committee or specific people to look at this information, I'd request that you include that in your motion as well.
Okay.
Alternatively, I think the question about whether the board wants to consider, for instance, the phase 2 part, this could be worked out as part of an offer. So you have a proposal, then now you have a revised proposal.
Mm-hmm.
If the township were to receive an offer for a purchase agreement, that would allow us to evaluate that, and in a sense be in the phase where we could work with the board to make a counteroffer. So the question is, when do you want to actually enter into a more formalized negotiation process?
I think we need to know the financials at this point better before we were really close to signing some sort of agreement, wouldn't you think?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So, I mean, go ahead.
No. Ms.
Yeah, I
Manley?
guess my question is, and I mean, even to Lockwood, it seems like, I think a lot of us are numbers based. It's kind of, I think we need to be sold on what the monetary benefits are going to be for the township. Like I said, the taxes, we're talking about the sewer. What are tap fees going to bring into us? What are you going to, put towards that? How is it going to help the community? I mean, the building's nice and pretty and that's great, but how is that going to benefit us?
Yeah. Ms. Chick?
I was going to just piggyback on that. In the concept drawings that I've seen for developments, even in the township from way back when, they provided financial statement to show, the amount of revenue this is expected to bring into the township, how it affects the taxes, how it affects the schools, although there's no kids going to school, but,
Right.
Those kind of things. So I'd like to see that.
On the homes.
Okay.
On the townhomes, there may be.
Yeah. Okay. So,
I'm sorry,
No.
Don.
okay, no.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Bellinger?
I do have one more question for Lockwood. Is there a possibility, what is the possibility of something along the lines of simply phase 2 without the large centerpiece of phase 1? Is this something that would be entertained or not at all?
It would not be entertained.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, so I guess we can request I'd like to make a motion to authorize the attorney, planner, and township manager to obtain and review a formal development proposal, or, to negotiate the financials and get the financials back for us so we can make a decision. Yeah, and allow the DDA and some others to provide some input to it also.
I'll support that.
Okay.
You're not talking about a purchase agreement?
No, well, we're not there yet, are we? No. We're not there yet.
Okay.
I think all we're looking at is basically
The
for
numbers.
financials.
The numbers. We need to understand what the impacts are going to be to our wastewater treatment plant and our, and our taxes and providing services, and, so there's going to be spreadsheets with columns, and, that's what I'd like to see. And the number of jobs and the potential economic impact, like you did in the downtown plan that we had there was all sorts of that kind of data for us so that we could understand the impacts.
So you want independent financial analysis, fiscal analysis of this site development.
Yeah, they can do that, correct?
You want Lockwood to provide it.
And you would be helping, I would think.
Okay.
Yeah, get it together so that we can see it. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Discussion. Ms. Bellinger?
Is there any input that legal has, that suggestions or input that we should perhaps be
Well, if you
aware
get to the point where you think you want to move forward, it would be for Lockwood to present the township with a purchase agreement.
Right.
Real estate purchase agreement with a whole variety of conditions in it, because the property's going to have to be rezoned, it's going to be site plan connection fees, on and on and on, and that we would then look at a contract.
Right.
But I'm understanding the board wants more information about the entire project before you get to that stage.
Okay. I better call Mr. Dockett here. before I-
6,200 times 140 is a little under $1 million, and it's going to cost us about $8 million to do the sewer. So they're not paying much.
Okay, Ms. Chick.
I just forgot what I was going to ask.
Okay.
Oh, no. Can we just get it in a document, or does Lockwood have to come back, or do you want them to come back?
A document would
Everybody?
work, right?
Or,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So within that, I'd still like Mr. Lippens to do in the scoring. And then also, any diagram we get, could we just depict the open space? Actually, the diagrams need to be larger or easier to read because I can't read all the numbers of the acreage. So when they said that they had 68% of open space, that's really hard to really see that on that. Certainly doesn't look that way. So I'd like, better pictures and the space really define that, this is calculated. And then when do and how do we get the DDA involved? Because, or who developed the synthesized plan with Mr. Lippens, how do they get back into the loop?
Yeah, the whole community did.
So how do we get them back? Because I don't see them here right now. Not
Yeah.
many. I appreciate the people that have come, but I don't, how do we get them back?
They came to the vision sessions.
So how do we get them
So we can't
back?
discount what they said or they asked
Well,
for.
now they can see it, and now we have the financials, and now, but how do we get it back? But how do we get them back and more involved? So what did we do the first?
You could make it transparent and put it online.
Right.
Well,
we can discuss it at our next DDA meeting.
I
And
mean, how do we get them back involved? So how did we get the input? So we went to the senior center. We had some open house at 75, right?
We advertised for the visioning sessions.
Yeah, so how do we get them back and say, hey, guys, we're getting close. This is what you said, maybe not. We don't really think this is what you said. We're not really sure. How do we get them back and say, hey, we're going to make a decision?
Well,
And Facebook is one way, but that isn't how we did the synthesized plan, not through Facebook.
Okay.
So
We'll
that's
make
it.
sure we discuss it again at the next DDA meeting, which will be on the 22nd. And I can email out all of this information that we have received with the photos to the DDA and request comments, although I know I probably just get it from a few of the people. But I know Mr. Sechrist keeps an eye on us, and I know some of the other members too watch at home, so they should be able to provide some comments on what they've seen, and that can be taken into account as the negotiations continue. Okay, so we had a motion on the floor. Did we get a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay.
Was this for more financial details?
Yes.
Can you please reread it one more time, please?
Yes. To authorize.
I seconded it.
Oh, okay. Motion to authorize the attorney, planner, and township manager to obtain and review a more formal development proposal from Lockwood for the North Village, and to obtain the comments of the DDA and/or DPG.
The formal, that's not what your first motion was. Your first motion was for more financial
The
details.
financials, yeah, the
It
financial
was not for a
details.
formal development proposal.
Okay, formal, isn't it the same thing? Financial details, okay.
No, just financial details.
Okay, financial details. Okay.
So could I please hear the motion again then?
Okay, so let's try again. Authorize the township attorney, planner, and township manager to obtain and review the financial details of the proposal from Lockwood for the North Village and obtain DDA and DPG comments. Is that good? Okay. Do we need a roll call vote, Mr.
Yes.
Dockett? Okay,
So
roll call vote?
Can we have discussion? So
More discussion?
yeah,
Okay.
I just have a question. So every time the lawyer and Mr. Lippens and the township manager meets, how much does that cost us? How much has it been costing? Do we have a thought on that? I mean, we have the North Village.
Yeah.
And then if I look at, April, May, June, July, so McKenna, it just says like North Village RFP July 8/7/2000. I'm not thinking that's it. So do we know how much these sessions are costing the township?
We have a not to exceed, don't we, Mr. Lippens?
I do, yeah, so I have that. So
You
my
don't have a
question
not
is,
to exceed.
Oh, for this project, we don't? Okay.
No, it's a part of your planning budget.
okay,
All
so it's
right.
not costing.
I did not hear that. What?
All right, just checking.
You,
Part of the plan.
you allot a certain amount of money every year for planning.
The planning budget.
And
Okay.
what we try to do is keep the amount of planning work we do within the budget. That makes sense.
Okay.
You have work that needs to be done, we want to do it. Right now, this is your priority. But in terms of, your fiscal responsibility, the question is, at what point do you call the question? You've
Yeah.
been working on this for a long time. We can
Yep.
continue to study it. If you want more
Yep.
financial analysis, we'll do it and provide it.
Yep.
But you're requesting it. You want more analysis on it.
Mhm.
And that's what we'll do. That's our job.
Okay.
We're happy to look at it.
Does that go with you too, Paul? Mr. Burns? Is this part of the retainer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Zelenak,
Yes?
Chick,
Yes?
Docket,
No.
Otto,
Yes.
Chockley,
Yes.
Manley, yes, Bellinger.
No.
Okay. That passes 5 yeses, 2 nos. Thank you. Okay, we can move on. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you very much.
Take a
I do
break.
believe you have very
Okay.
quality products. Thank you.
Quick break.
I can beat Tom there.
Thanks, sir. Nicely done. They might like the boards if you can leave them. Yeah. I think that they would like that. She's going to the principal's office.
headache.
I can't hear
Like,
Problem is, the guy who did the murder gets out. Oh, yeah.
I was going to say nice. One talking to him.
Keep him there. I mean, I think he was owed on a bond. Well, I was waiting for the original trial.
I do not like, I didn't like the money for
I
things
don't
too.
know how they proved the case.
Yeah. And you can't tell.
I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Hello, I'd like to call this meeting back to order.
Hello? People?
Let's go. All right.
Meeting's back in order.
Yep. I'd like to make a motion to approve and authorize the signature on the annual contract assigning Sergeant David Powell to the Drug Enforcement Administration.
I'll support.
Motion by Chalkley, support by Otto. Do we have any discussion on this item? Mr. Dockett.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. Northfield Township PD, Police Department, has sent a Northfield Township police officer to work for the Detroit Drug Enforcement Administration for the last 10 years. The taxpayers of Northfield Township pay 100% of the cost of this officer every year. He doesn't work in our township. He works in Detroit, out of Detroit. When some of the drug money is returned back to Northfield Township from the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, Northfield Township police officer, when they send the money back to the Northfield Township Police Department, Wagner says that the return money cannot be used to pay the DDA officer's wages or his benefits. That is why I do not support this project. I don't see why, if we pay 100% for this officer, everything, all of his benefits, buy him a car, buy his gas, send him to Detroit. When the money comes back, no, it can't go back to us. I just don't get it. Why should we subsidize the DEA? Thank you.
Okay, let's let Mr. Wagner respond.
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So that's not completely accurate. Any overtime that he works is reimbursed to the township. He, in the last year or 2 years, has spent much more time in Northfield Township working Northfield Township crimes. He brings many, many resources of the federal government, of the state and county law enforcement agencies with him when he comes. As I said, if you remember back last June when we had 4 or 5 significant crimes in 4 or 5 weeks in a row, he was an integral part of investigating, arresting, prosecuting those particular crimes. And he is still spending a lot more time in this station. He was probably here 4 hours today. He can do work, some of his work that he does for them, he does out of this station. So he's available to go on calls, which he does all the time. And not to mention, if you figure that he costs the township $90,000 a year for 10 years, $900,000 that we've paid him, he's brought in well over $1.5 million through drug forfeitures. Not to mention the drugs that they take off the street, including Northfield Township.
Ms. Otto?
So, Bill, some of that forfeiture, what does that go for?
There's a guide that we can use it for. We can use it to purchase vehicles. We can use it for training. We can use it for office supplies. Just about everything but the wages of officers. So it assists us in not having to take out other money from our budget to purchase vehicles and training, firearms, ammunition.
And I know in previous times we've purchased other type of equipment with it too. Like, didn't we do the speeding, something
Yeah, for speeding trailer, the security for this building.
Right.
That kind of stuff, yeah. There's a lot of things we can purchase with it, but there's some things that we can't. And that's a federal law that we follow.
Okay. Ms. Bellinger?
So, is Mr. Dockett trying to say that we pay the salary for the officer, but the officer spends some time working for the state or the federal government, as well as here when he's not busy with the state or federal? But in the kickback that we do get from the other authority, was that federal, I guess you're referring to, we cannot apply that towards the wages? Although we're paying his
I don't know
wages.
if I want to call it a kickback, but we do get forfeitures.
It's not.
We do get forfeitures from convicted felons of drug trafficking, drug crimes. And that's correct. We cannot use it for the officer's wages. We have to use it for crime prevention.
That's peculiar. That seems almost like a transfer of funds. And not that I'm not after you or anything about it, but that seems like just a way of moving money. I something about it isn't right, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. I'm not sure if I can verbalize it properly.
Then take it up with your U.S. Senator, I guess.
Yep.
Take it up with something, yeah. But you know what I'm saying?
It's a federal law.
Yeah.
I'd like to correct something. It also, when you say it's wages, that's his benefits and everything else, not just wages.
Yep.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a very a rule that doesn't make sense, that the taxpayers can't get that money back. The people that pay his wages cannot get the money back.
We
But
just,
doesn't he
I'm
work
not saying
for that?
I'm not saying it's not a worthy cause.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, but he is working for the community, and he's
not working for the community. He reports every day to the DEA.
That's not true.
Well, that's what it says on here. That's what it says in your. It says that he works for Detroit. That's exactly what it says.
all right. But the money that comes back gets used in other ways so that we don't have to, the funds don't have to be taken out to buy the cars, you know, so it kind of, it's a wash and, you know, I mean, it balances out.
Actually, it's a benefit to the taxpayers because the taxpayers aren't paying for all of these. It's coming out of forfeitures from drug money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the cost of somebody getting caught with drugs.
We get more than we pay. Okay. Can we, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Manley, yes. Otto?
Yes.
Chick?
Yes.
Bellinger?
Oh, no.
Was that a
Is that
no or?
I
no.
don't know.
No.
Okay,
Docket?
No.
Shockley?
yes.
Zelenak?
Yes.
Thank you, that passes 5-2.
Thank you. I'm going to take off unless there's any other questions for me.
No.
Yes, there was. It was later on in the, that's why I asked if we're going to pull these reports. Can I pull them? Maybe we can jump to the report. It would be the number 1 out of the, what did we call that? The consent agenda, I guess the fire department report, number 1.
Yep, go ahead
Yeah,
quickly.
Let me grab that. So, one thing I would just, the first things first, can we in the very top right corner get that corrected on the page? The very top right corner where the little badge logo is, where it makes reference to Lieutenant Green still. I
Yep.
would please like to see that changed. I want to also congratulate Lieutenant Marty Smith for completing his police staff and command class. And you already mentioned October 14th, 1 to 4. You took care of that. And that was, what does this say? Oh, and I wanted to make a mention that on item number 7, the self-contained breathing apparatus, we will receive a grant for $224, but we will need to match it by 10%. That does cost $22,475 from the, I guess, public safety fund.
Yep.
I did not hear the answer when you asked him if he could take that badge off, and that, what did he say?
No, I can do that. It'll take a little bit.
Okay.
And then if there's no other questions, if the board wants to hear a quick update on Green, I'm happy to. Basically, he
Go
has
ahead.
two court dates coming up at the end of October and the beginning of November.
That's what, 2 years or 3?
It'll be 2 years, November 10th, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just one comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Zelnok.
Yep. Yes, I would also like to join you in congratulating Lieutenant Marty Smith on
Thank
his
you.
completion. So,
Okay, thank you.
good job.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you.
I just have a quick comment. And Bill, you can leave.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment about Lieutenant Green. He's no longer an employee of ours.
Right.
So really,
He's no longer what?
he's no longer an employee of ours.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not true.
When did that
I thought he
happen?
wasn't.
No, he's on unpaid administrative leave.
Oh, we still have not let him go?
I don't know.
I
I guess
thought
that's I thought we
No.
did, but.
No, we have not.
No?
No, we haven't. He's on unpaid administrative leave,
Okay,
based on our attorney's recommendation.
all right.
They don't like to do anything to officers. They are bad.
All right, go ahead. Moving on to the next item, which is
Have a good night.
renewing the first national security agreement. Go ahead, Ms. Zelnok, with this item.
I thought we were going to hire somebody.
Nope,
Nope.
it was canceled.
Oh, that's canceled. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I make a motion to have authorization to approve and to renew, let me start again. I would like to request approval and authorization to sign the security agreement between First National Bank of Holland, Northfield Township, from October 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018. And this is a renewal based on what we currently have.
Okay, Ms. Zelnok made the motion. Do we have a second? I'll second. Ms. Chick seconded. Do we have any more discussion on this item?
Yes, I'd like to ask on page.
Go ahead.
The second from the last page on the far right. At the bottom it says total securities. 4,593,000. And then it says on the very bottom that the pledge has to be 4,500,000.
Correct.
You're cutting it pretty close, aren't you?
Yes, so the agreement is to pledge 4.5 million, And occasionally, they have to at least do that, and if they can't make the securities, then they go over slightly.
Thank you.
Okay, do we need a roll call vote on this? Yes. Oh, you can vote yes, Mr. Dockett?
I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I
So
trust,
is this a new bank?
No.
It
This is
isn't,
still
it's
with
a renewal.
First-
Okay,
yeah,
because
renewal.
it's
Renewal
not,
with
it
First
didn't say
National.
renewal.
it's only 4.5
No,
million.
just-
I trust
Okay.
her.
Well, since it involves money, we'll have a roll call vote.
Chick? Yes. Otto?
Yes.
Zelenak?
Yes.
Manley, yes. Otto, Shockley?
Yes.
Dockett?
Yes.
Bellinger?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, that passes 7-0. All right, next item, Ms. Zelnok.
So I'm requesting approval and authorization to invest in Morgan Stanley's money market.
Okay, motion by Zelnok, support by Chick. Do we need any discussion on this one? Ms. Otto?
How much is the investment?
There is none. It would be up to 1.9 million, which would be secure. I am working with Yvette to look at our cash flow. So right now, we know in the wastewater treatment, we have 1.4 million available in cash flow, and I want to see what we have in MIF. But in particular, we have the CD that's coming due for the fire truck in mid-October, and I would like to just move that into the money market until it's needed to make that expenditure. So that would be the first move. And then again is, as mentioned here, is to diversify our assets, and it, with the insurance that they provide, it'll be an additional 1.9. So I'd like to potentially look at our cash flow and put it in a different institution that is secured.
Okay.
Okay, do we know what the rating is for this investment?
I don't know if they actually put it down there. I know they're investing in money markets and treasury bonds and agency bonds. That's where
Yeah,
money
and
markets.
Yeah.
is there a penalty for pulling out? And then I'd also like to know is is all of it in treasury bonds, treasury bills, and agency bonds, or is there only a percentage of it in government securities?
All of it is back and invested in government securities.
Okay.
All of it is.
And is there any penalties in pulling out early?
You can move it on a daily basis.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Dockett.
I would like to say that 1.93 interest is very good.
It is.
Thank you. And I want to know, I want this in the minutes, and I want an answer. Did you or anyone else have any funds in money market funds or CDs?
What?
Do I have any money, my personal money?
No, any township money. Any township money. Because FDIC does not insure them. That's why I'm asking the question.
What is the question again, please?
Yeah, I don't understand.
I want to know if the township has any funds.
Any other money there?
And money market funds or CDs.
We have CDs.
With Morgan Stanley?
Yeah, well, I don't believe they're insured.
Yes, they are. So what Morgan Stanley does for us, and they're one of the few brokers that do it, is they actually go out and they're almost like a CDARS program. They actually go out and purchase CDs at different banks. So we can use Morgan Stanley as our conduit, but the CDs are all purchased at different banks that meet the Public Act 20 of being a brick and mortar in the state of Michigan.
And the 20 is that 250 or 500,000?
What was that?
Well, I mean, they'll tell you at the bank here that they only insure up to 250,000.
Correct. So
unless you put two people's name on the
correct.
account.
So
then it's
basically,
500.
so if you look at our investment report, we do not have a CD over $250,000.
Okay,
so
that's the
that is
question I'm
FDIC.
That's the
insured.
question I'm asking.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Zelenak?
Yes.
Manley? Yes. Otto?
Yes.
Chick?
Yes.
Chockley?
Yes.
Docket?
Yes.
Bellinger?
Yes.
Thank you, that passes 7-0. Okay, the next item is the sewer rates. We made an adjustment to the metered sewer rates, the unmetered sewer rates, and we didn't make the corresponding adjustment to the metered sewer rates, so I'm recommending that we do so they're not unequally charged.
I move that we adjust the metered sewer rates from $5.60 to $6 per 1,000 gallons, effective with the November 1st billing.
I would like to amend that to 601.
Oh, please don't do 601. Please.
It
I know
does.
it's a 601.
So if I may, please make your motion, I'll have a discussion on it.
Okay.
Is it 601? Okay.
601.
I move that we adjust the metered sewer rates from $5.60 to $6 and 1,000 gallons, effective with the November 1st billing.
You don't want to. Can we just do it at 6?
Pick one, I don't care.
It doesn't really matter, except when we...
Cash receipting.
One more time.
So,
Are you ready? You ready, Lisa? Okay. One more time. I move that we adjust the metered sewer rates from the rate of $5.60 to $6 per 1,000 gallons, effective with the November 1st billing.
Okay, so, all right. And
So explain the 1 cent.
okay.
so when you do cash receipting, so right now, and this may not be as much because it's a multiplication of multiple, but multiplying 6.01 by, instead of 6, the math becomes easier.
Yeah.
So, think about the last rate we did was $90.20. So people come in, they have to pay $90.20 instead of just $90. So now we have to make sure we have a lot more change than we usually do on cash receipting purposes.
Yeah.
They might write the bill out and just write it down $90 and actually forget the 20 cents. So it's just so much easier to just do, straight dollars. Okay, $6.50 maybe, but $6.
I understand that.
$90, and then not to have, who knows what the cash drawer is going to be.
I have a cash register in my store, I understand.
Yeah.
Or if you're prorating a bill.
Yeah. if you-
Prorating a bill.
Prorating.
getting a
Prorating
penny.
90/20.
It
Yeah.
becomes just a more of
Yeah.
administrative issues, and just for the
Okay.
person writing the check, for the people cashing the check, for people bringing in cash. So we kind of like 90/20.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and it was like point blah, blah, blah. It was-
0.01
A lot of
and
99 cents.
Yeah, that was the immediate comment we got from staff after we did that. What? So anyway, so thank you very much for the motion. Can we have a roll call vote on that one?
I want to.
Oh, one more comment?
Yes,
Okay.
I have some comments. It's raised up 7%, is that correct?
Yes,
And what did we raise the little people's?
7%.
Was it exactly the same?
Yep,
That's my question. Thank you.
okay. Roll call vote, please.
Bellinger?
Yes.
Otto?
Yes.
Zelenak?
Yes.
Chockley?
Yes.
Chick?
Yes.
Docket?
Yes.
Manley? Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes 7-0. Okay, and I guess I'd like to make a motion to approve the payment of the open bills. The expected check run date will be 10/10 for a total of $101,726.99 from the Municipal Investment Fund account. Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Chalkley, second by Manley. Okay, we have discussion.
So if you had that penny.
How come the
that
bill
penny?
says 93?
It's just a,
How come the bill says 93,000?
yeah.
593.
Well, and I believe
The 93 and the 16?
Jennifer filled in that amount for us. Where is it? 93,000. Oh, yeah. And it's because we have some legal charges that were run separately. So if you add, I suspect it will add up to that. If we add the
Is it this one here?
Yeah, the single page, yes.
Yeah.
And it was only because the bill came in as was all happening, and this was already run. The main page was already run, and so we ran this one just to make sure it got into the open bill so that the board could approve it before it was paid.
I'm not good at my go-intos,
You're not
so I hope the total's right.
I do too. So, anyway, Ms. Bellinger.
Yeah, I want to know a little bit more about the SEMCOG designated management service charge of $240. I'm not a fan of being a membership of a bunch of these various, what do you want to call them, cabals. So if anybody has any explanation.
Okay, I won't cast aspersions on SEMCOG. I think they do a lot of valuable services. But the designated management service charge is based on the wastewater, the volume of wastewater that is exits our wastewater treatment plant. That's how they got the amount.
SEMCOG is charging us to be some part of membership dues based on how much wastewater we
and
use?
what they do is they monitor the wastewater and they provide services to member governments to deal with wastewater.
Did we
What
vote
services?
to pay for this?
Yeah, $240 apparently.
Yep.
What is it,
Yep.
the services they provide with regards to wastewater? I'm curious.
I can provide you the, I asked about this also when I saw it, because I knew it was going to come up.
Yep.
And I have the document is downstairs, and you can make a copy of it, and it tells the whole range of programming that this contributes to.
I would like to pull that from the bills. Could I move to stop payment on this particular?
I don't know if it's a membership fee, really.
Did we vote to pay that?
Not yet.
Not yet, that's what we're
Not
asking
yet.
for
Well,
now.
I mean, maybe we should have talked about it.
Well, we are right now.
Yep.
Well,
The motion's made and now we're discussing
no,
it.
it's already billed.
Yep,
No, it's open. We haven't paid yet, that's why we're discussing it.
correct.
But we shouldn't pay unless we talk about it.
Well, that's what we're doing now.
Right.
We're talking about it now. I would like to pull that payment from the bills.
Is SEMCOG part of our budget?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And the budget has been approved with SEMCOG in it?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
The motion
I made
is to
the motion
remove.
to to approve the bills.
Okay, I support.
Okay,
I'll support it.
we already did that, and we're having discussion.
I'd like to amend the motion to remove the SEMCOG dues for $240.
So, do you have a second?
Not yet.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Bellinger and a second by Mr. Dockett to remove the
$240
the
charge.
$240 membership dues of SEMCOG. Okay, let's have a roll call vote. Right, unless anybody wants to discuss it anyway. We're voting on the amendment only.
Okay. Otto?
No.
Manley? No. Zelenak?
No.
Bellinger?
Yes.
Shockley?
No.
Chick?
No.
Dockett?
Yes.
Okay, that failed. Okay, so we have a motion on the table to approve the rest of the bills. Do we have any more discussion on any other bills? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Manley? Yes. Otto?
Yes.
Zelenak?
Yes.
Dockett?
No.
Shockley?
Yes.
Bellinger?
No.
Chick?
Thank you, that passes 5-2. Okay, next item. I just have a motion to accept the check disbursement report for paid bills. And these checks were issued after our last big meeting until the 4th, for a total of $289,279.30 from the Municipal Investment Fund account.
Support.
Motion by Chalkley, support by Manley. Any discussion on these items?
I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
This is for Madam Treasurer. Is it always from this MIF fund that these are paid from? I was just wondering why this was mentioned in here from the Municipal Investment Fund. On the motion here, is this normally the fund that these bills are paid from, or what, is this some special note
MIF
note
account?
here?
Do all the bills come out of MIF?
No? Then perhaps that's Jennifer,
They don't, they don't,
an
all,
error.
do you see what I'm referring to? They're
Yeah,
our last
okay.
item number 8?
Yeah. Yeah, they all come out of MIF, correct, they do.
Okay,
Yeah, all the wastewater treatment, all that comes out of MIF.
okay.
If we have anything with the police narcotics, taxes would come out of taxes, so yes, it all comes out of the MIF.
Okay,
These are all MIF accounts,
Right.
sorry.
okay. Do we have any more discussion on this? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, that passes 7-0. All right, next is consent agenda, and you all have written reports. Thank you, everyone, for the written reports. Those were terrific. So I would like to make a motion to accept the consent, the reports from the consent agenda.
I'll support.
Motion by Chalkley, support by Manley. Any discussion on this?
How far down do we go?
All the consent agenda 1 through 6.
Yeah, I had a question, a point on number, item number 6, the financial fund balance report. I think that's, yeah, number 6.
You have a question about that?
Yeah, I think I have a question on the financials and fund balance report. One was on the fund balance report, which I am struggling to find. Is it possible maybe to just get like maybe 2? Like, it's kind of confusing with all the numbers. You have that little chart, Docket has it in his hand there.
Yeah.
So what actually is the real fund balance? And I know we always it's kind of unclear. I don't know if there's a way to,
They try to confuse us. They don't want us to know what the fund balance is. I've asked for just a single number, but it does not work.
yeah, I mean, is it shall we amend the budget up to change the fund balance on the 18-19 approved budget? It is, I'm sorry, it's just a little confusing. I mean, I don't know what would make it easier, but anybody have any ideas?
Well, what is it?
So,
Can someone tell us?
Doesn't
what
it change as money comes in and money goes out?
yeah, so what this report is trying to do is give you a trend of where the fund balance was. So you have the 2015-16 actual. At that point, we had a fund balance of 129%. Then in 2016-17.
What does that mean?
That means your
Our actual balance was 36%.
so no, I mean in 2015 and 16.
Yeah.
You had a fund balance of $1,603,498, which basically looking at your expenditures and your revenues, it was 129%. The auditors at that point in time wanted us at 100%, so we were over it. Then in 2016, when the actuals came in, our fund balance was at 36% because there was expenditures made. But these are past, these are history. 2017 and 18, the actual, but I would expect maybe after the audit it might change some, was at 85%. But I do expect that to change once the audit is completed, and there probably and usually are adjustments made.
So that's basically a past number as well.
That's going to be.
Okay, it basically is a past, I mean, in all
Yes,
reality.
right.
It might change after the audit, but that's past. So currently, then it's 66 then.
And so we say that, to me, the approved budget is the best way to look at it, because we will make a budget adjustments throughout the year quarterly. But if you look at, and you want to look at it monthly, it'll just swing wildly depending on the revenues we receive that month and the expenditures. So to give a real good, to me, the best estimate of where our fund balance will be as an actual at the end of the year, it's at 66%. And that number will change quarterly as we make budget adjustments.
Okay, that was the best description I've received, and I do thank you for that. So basically, it's the bottom right corner is where we're most projected to be.
So if you would like to just see that, we can certainly do that. I would probably recommend the actual until it's finalized and then the budget.
I think with that explanation, that was sufficient.
It doesn't make any difference, and it does.
Yes, but it's down from 85.
That's correct.
Okay, well, I thank you for that. That does help a lot. The other issues, the other points I have to make on this, on the financials are the ones where we have the charts, the section where we have the charts, because there's two things stapled together. So it would be page 2 of 15, and then I'm going to go to 13 of 15, and that's in the second group. I do like the charts, by the way, yes. I'm at these kind of charts. Mine are all stapled together, so I don't, maybe yours aren't, but
Yeah, mine are.
they look like this. Yeah. We have on the, towards the right-hand side, we have one for recreation, and then we have one for parks. I don't know if this is, for some reason, we need 2 of those. I thought they would be parks and rec. And also, we do not have a budgeted thing for land preservation. So it appears as though 2 of these could be removed from that chart, either combine parks and rec into one, and then remove the land preservation. That same note applies to page 13 of 15. There's one that looks like a table, sort of, kind of, where we have, again, the recreation and the parks as 2 separate lines. I believe they should be combined, and then land preservation, which we do not have budgeted, should be removed from that.
Yep.
So I'd like to see those.
I didn't get that for some reason.
It's on with this stuff here, docket. It's connected with all that. It's the second half of that.
This?
Yeah.
Hold on.
They're kind of like 2 different things.
All right, I got you.
And then we have parks and recs. That should be combined. I agree.
Okay, we can get that fixed.
And then
Okay.
land preservation, yep, we can fix that.
Thank you. Those were the things that I had spotted.
Thanks.
So the motion still stands, seconded by Manley, for me, seconded by Manley, to accept the consent agenda and receive the reports. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you, that's 7-0. All right, the liaison reports were all written. Does anyone have any questions on any of these reports? Ms. Otto?
The only thing that I had for the land preservation is for going forward, if we could see an update on Barry Alonick's work.
Sure.
That in your report, that would be appreciated.
That's, that will be the plan. Once,
Okay.
so he will be submitting his hours and what he worked on. So I will, once we get that, I will put that in the report.
Okay.
I would also like to make a mention in the land preservation report as well. I would like to know whom Barry Lonick is reaching out to, and I'd like to know when he plans on having meetings with different residents. I'd like to know when and where. I believe as one of the board members that I should be available to that information prior to. Thank you. I want to get that information, please.
I have a question.
My concern with that is that we might be breaching confidentiality of the property owners. If they haven't made a negotiation or entered into a contract with any land preservation, which would be public, I don't think that their name should be held public until
That happens.
that happens.
Right.
Yeah,
If
we
there's-
should not have any
It's like-
public knowledge
Right.
before
It's like
that
you
happens.
mortgaging your house. Do you want everybody
How,
in the township
how
to
are,
know?
now, wait a second. Now, we have authorized, we have contractors, paid a contractor to talk to residents about land preservation.
Right, but I don't
Right.
think that we need to have a list of those of names
I would like to possibly
and
attend.
know the dates of those meetings.
I would like to attend
That
a
was
meeting.
my question, is what your intent
As
is, and
a
that
resi-
would be
as a-
inappropriate.
As a board member, I think that I would like to attend and see, are we getting our money's worth?
I wouldn't approve of that. No.
What would we be hiding
He's
by
he's
not attending? What are we trying to hide?
Well,
Trying to hide anything.
If he was coming to my house and a board member wanted to come,
What
I'd
would be
nix
the-
it right there.
Yeah.
I'd want to talk to the professional. I wouldn't want any outside
A board
sources
member does not
involved.
need to participate other than observe.
So
Same difference.
basically,
You're still there.
So basically how I feel is whatever I do with my farmland or my property is my business. It has nothing to do with the township.
Well, I feel
If
as
I want to
a
get an
representative.
easement done, it is my business.
Yeah, we're paying with taxpayer money.
He can document his hours.
I
He can
feel that
show
we
us what
should
he's
be
doing.
able to watch the people that we contract.
no.
Well, I mean, if, I don't know, I mean, you raised a good point. If you're going to watch everybody you contract,
Have
and
that
not-
option, too.
And not single out a particular individual, then if that's our board policy, then okay, but that would have to apply to everybody.
Why would I be precluded
So-
from observing a contractor that the
Are you gonna
township
go through, I mean, again,
has
if you're-
hired?
if you're going to do it for everybody and have that as a policy, that you're gonna go to electrical inspections and building inspections and all that, but I don't think we should single out a particular individual or group.
Okay.
Is there any comment from legal?
I would have to look at the contract to see whether the township has the right to attend that.
So the contract was done by Stacy Belisle as an independent contractor,
Yeah.
but I can certainly give you that.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we know that he's even doing what he says that
I did
we're
read.
doing? I mean, this is part of the point. I mean, isn't it our job
Well,
to
you have
be
a
able to
that's-
oversee things
That's
if
what
possible?
a contract is for. I mean, it's the same way as, and Jim, I'm going to use you, so sorry, but how do we know that Jim's doing what he's doing? At some point, you have to trust in who you hire, and if they don't do the work, then you let them go.
Well, at some point, we need to also have the ability to supervise. After all, we are custodians of the taxpayers' money.
Now, and maybe I shouldn't say this, and I know you didn't approve of the contract.
That's
So-
neither here nor there.
Well, you didn't approve of the contract, so, you know, I don't know. I just feel like it is singling them out because of that, and
I mean, I didn't approve it, but I do not approve that. I think that we're crossing a very gray area if the township starts getting involved in people's personal property decisions.
This isn't, yeah, I'm not there to influence the decision of a property, or I'm there to watch what is going on by a person that we're using taxpayer money and we contracted. I mean, we also need to observe the person moving the snow, person cutting the grass. I mean, it's just another contract. We also use Jim and we have Lisa here. These are people that we do have contract with, and we have to also observe what they do and be aware of what they do and have the ability to scrutinize the work that's being,
So
that
then
we're
we
paying
have
to have
follow
done.
every police officer around because we have a union contract. I mean,
Doesn't mean
that's
we have
too
to
much
watch every
government
moment.
interference, yeah.
I'm not saying to watch every moment of everything. What precludes us from being able to watch, being able to look over the contractor's work that we
it's
that
like,
we hire
Well,
in?
you can make the motion.
yeah, go ahead and make a motion.
I move that that the board receives a list of prospective. I want to, okay, let me verbalize it better. I move that the board receive a list of Barry Lonnick's plans of whom and when he wishes to meet with regards to land preservation in Northfield Township. Doesn't need to be, yeah,
Support.
thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Bellinger and support by Mr. Dockett.
I mean, why would we not be able to see the work of a contractor? Why would we not be able to oversee the work of a contractor? I mean, there was discussion many times earlier about whether or not we could attend certain meetings or not, so. In this case, this is actually a contractor that we're using taxpayer money that we hired into.
We could all look over the shoulder of our OHM guy or our Tetra Tech
Certainly.
guy and go to their office and just stand there and watch them type on their computers.
We could go visit
and
them
everything
anytime
else.
if we wish, yes.
I think the
Why
difference
not?
is asking for a list compared to going to sitting out with an appointment.
Yeah.
I mean,
I-
a list would be, that's fine.
I
But if
want
you
to
wanna
be
go-
able to go and have the ability to sit in an appointment, of course, with
Is that part of
landowners'
your-
permission, of course.
Is that part of your motion?
Yes, let me add that to the motion,
wants to
to be able to attend meeting with our contractor. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
You still have a second.
Yeah, you still got a second. Okay, let's have a roll call vote here.
Chockley?
No.
Otto?
No.
Dockett?
Yes.
Chick?
No.
Manley? No. Zelenak? No. Bellinger?
Yes.
Okay, that fails. 5-2. Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion to receive all of the reports. We have no other, well, they're just reports.
I want to say something about your report.
Okay, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I have a comment.
Okay.
Are you ready? Are
Is
you
is
ready?
this time for board member comments? And we have second call to public.
No, I have a comment on your report.
On my report? Oh, okay.
Okay, Marlene, you sent a memo to Dan at the water treatment plant that said that Wayne Dockett said that the plant bypassed untreated sewage in 2014. This is not true. You represented, your representation, excuse me, when you had your presentation 2 weeks ago at the last meeting about the sewer plant, you were not truthful or factual, in my opinion. You were pushing a one-sided agenda, as you regularly do at township meetings. You're the one who said that the plant bypassed untreated sewage into the creek.
I did not.
I did not say that.
So, to clarify, Mr. Dockett, you said that it was because the plant shut
No,
down?
I asked
You
the question. No,
you said...
I said why. She said she didn't know.
No, she said
No,
it was
she
because
said
of the...
she said she didn't
because
know.
it was the water.
She said she didn't know.
No, that...
So
You said it was from plant shutdown, and Dan clarified
I
and
asked
said
if it
no.
was a plant shutdown. I did not say it was. Besides that, she's
No.
the one that said.
You-
I didn't say that.
You said the plant was shut down, and I asked Dan if the plant was
I
shut
never-
down, and he said no.
I said why. You said you didn't know.
Right, so I asked why, and the plant
Well-
was not shut down.
I asked.
And it was due to...
You said that
stormwater.
we did it, and I said why.
We
You
did
said, "I don't
not,
know."
we did not put out raw sewage.
Well,
It was semi-treated. It was over our
The
permitted
word
limits.
Right here's the word is untreated. That's what you got written, untreated.
Where do you see untreated? I did not use the word untreated.
You did.
It's partially treated.
It doesn't say partially treated.
It does not say untreated. Let me read if this is a memo that I sent.
What's that say?
Yeah.
Okay. Dan, Wayne said that the plant bypassed untreated sewage in 2000 because it was shut down, not because of heavy flow. What really happened?
That was my question.
I never said that.
Okay, but that's...
Okay, well, I got clarification that we haven't put out raw sewage.
Wow.
Okay.
That's what you said.
It was
we did.
partially treated. Okay.
No, it doesn't say partially. It says untreated.
That's what you said.
No,
Okay.
that's what it says here.
Okay. All right. We are done with the report. Second call to the public. Oh, do we need to accept the reports? We didn't before, we just gave reports, but there they are. So if there's no more questions, we'll move on to second call to the public. Do we have any members of the public who would like to come up and share their thoughts with us for 3 minutes after stating their name and their address?
Take a lot less than 3 minutes. Dave Gordon, Helmer Road. I'm just kind of curious why the board members don't talk to each other before the meeting.
I am too.
You're in charge, Madam Supervisor, so maybe you could make a policy that questions get answered before the meeting, especially operational sort of things, so that we don't have easily an hour of the meeting gets wasted. And as the moderator of the meeting, you can simply say it's out of order, the question could have been answered earlier, and we can move forward and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's very frustrating, and I'm sure that
Thank
you
you.
might actually get more attendance at the meetings if they were shorter. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to us tonight? All right, second, come on up.
Udo Hof, 6431 Whitmore Lake Road. Wonderful. Was a bullseye for listening today, this meeting. And right away in the beginning, a question from the supervisor to the planner, if the task would be was completed, the answer was no. And that's a no-go, that when the supervisor is asking in the last board meeting that the planner has to do something and he's not doing this. And this comes down to when you don't have a project layout, even for planning, then you have those flaws in there. So it is ridiculous that this is going to happen, and it happens. And I'm so glad it happened, because it verifies my point from the very beginning. Number two is following the board meeting, and then it came to the point that the attorney, planner, and manager, they had to answer questions here from the board, which shouldn't occur, because if you had laid out a plan, they would have maybe already stated in that kind of a planning report. And it seemed to me that the three gentlemen steered towards the, purchase agreement. And I have to give you really credit for that you turned it down. Asked even a question, Ms. Zelenok, about the cost of the meetings, and the question or the answer was, this is part of the budget. If you would have a planning outline, then you would know how much the budget for the planning is, and then there is no need to have this hick-hack between board and this kind of a planning situation. So I feel completely satisfied that I wrote the letter to you. So please use this as a positive participation, and then thanks that you did not go for this right away for this purchase. So more questions to be asked, but now push it down really. Let them lay out this project to you step by step with all the milestones and so on, and then you have enough time to discuss this and backwards and forwards. And when it's really to a brainstorm down to finish this up, then it makes sense. But it did also, like Dave said, shorten the meeting enormously. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, board member comments? Anybody? Ms. Bellinger.
Just a reminder, we have Parks and Rec meeting this Thursday, 7 o'clock, and I do want to thank once again the people that did come out to the park and assist us with the 1 mile loop.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
of course, the chief has already left, but again, 1 to 4, I guess this Sunday is going to be the open house at the fire hall. That's here.
Okay.
Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening, a wonderful week ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Dockett.
Yes, use all your local businesses and services, and it might be time to think about selling the sewer plant, or maybe turn it into an authority. Let somebody else have the headaches.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Ms. Chick?
No.
No comment.
I do have a question. I would like to really challenge the board, because we've been talking about this for 2 years, to think of a way that we can actually ask questions before the meeting, so that we're not having the meetings run so long. There's absolutely no reason why a lot of these questions can't be asked beforehand, so we can just get through. These are for handling business. We should be going bam,
Right.
bam, bam.
Right. Oh.
He couldn't
Go
hear
ahead,
you
Ms.
through the
Chick.
mic.
Repeat.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I was challenging the board to think of ways that, because we've been doing this for 2 years, asking board members to please ask their questions before the meetings. So a lot of these questions are easily answered by the supervisor, the manager, whoever is in charge of whatever department they have a question about, planning commission, whatever it is. Ask the question before the meeting because we're tying up meetings with little trivial things that we don't have to do.
Right.
And 2-hour presentations.
Okay. Ms. Otto, do you have anything?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming and
Yeah.
making their comments known. And yes, I agree that we should be asking the questions ahead of time.
Yep. Okay, Ms. Manley?
Again, thanks everybody for coming. Get ready for the election November 6th, longest ballot in history. So if you need an absentee, absentee ballot, please come in and see us.
Okay.
Go online. Just be prepared.
Okay. Ms. Zelnok?
So I would just like to, Mr. Udo Huff raises a good point. I mean, we did ask our planner to do the RFQ, and it didn't get done. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
That's, very disappointing in that regard. So, I mean, this is a huge project for the township, and I'm not sure why it didn't get done.
Right.
I
didn't
agree
wanna-
with that.
I didn't want to cut short the presentation because I knew there were a lot of questions about this.
didn't
It's
wanna do
probably
that
the
either.
biggest thing that's gonna,
Right.
that potentially will happen to us. So I didn't want to cut that short. But I do agree, some of the questions are unnecessary, and they're just picking kind of questions. So I would like you to all think about that ahead of time so we can reduce the time. Move to adjourn. Okay, motion by Chalkley, support by Otto. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. We're out of here.